The Italian Job.
You know this was never about the gold.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, sweetheart.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're here to talk about 2003's The Italian Job, and we're also here today to talk about its new 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But first, before we dive into all that, if you are a fan of movie reviews, 4K Blu-ray reviews, we do some lists here, we do some podcasts, we do it all here on the channel. If you're a fan of all of that, nothing helps this channel out more than by you simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So The Italian Job was released 20 years ago, back in May of 2003. It's a remake of the 1969 Italian Job. This one is directed by F. Gary Gray. Many of you might know him as the guy who directed Friday, Straight Outta Compton, the most recent Men in Black movie, Men in Black International, and he also directed The Fate of the Furious that came out back in 2017. And he also directed a very little-known heist movie called Set It Off from 1996. So if you haven't seen that one, definitely check that one out. But today we're here to talk about 2003's The Italian Job. Now, this is a remake of the 1969 Italian Job, but they really use that term remake very fast and loose. There is no connection to this movie to the original. None of the characters' names are the same. The story itself, the plot, none of it is the same. It's basically just a remake in the sense it uses the name The Italian Job, and they drive Mini Coopers, and it's a heist movie. And that's really it. But Paramount did make the original one, and they wanted to reuse the name now. I came up with a couple titles that would have been a little bit better. You could have gone with the LA Job, the Hollywood Job. You know, I don't know how much people were going to this movie just because the name of it was The Italian Job, and they were a big fan of the Michael Caine original from 1969. And I actually got to watch them both this year because I reviewed that Kino Lorber 4K earlier this year, so I was comparing them in my head. And 2003's Italian Job, I had seen this actually in theaters 20 years ago, and I remember not loving it. I was also 11 years old, so you got to take that with a grain of salt as well. But after rewatching this movie and with its stacked cast, including Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron, Jason Statham, Mos Def, Seth Green, Ed Norton, Donald Sutherland. It's just a packed ensemble cast, and it's just your typical heist movie. I didn't think that this movie was anything special. It feels very 2003. It feels very much like an F. Gary Gray movie. I could see watching this movie how the guy got the job doing The Fate of the Furious. They are very similar in tone, especially like the heist scenes themselves. You could see, okay, I could see the producers of The Fate of the Furious watching this movie and going, oh, okay, that's the guy. That's the guy we're going to get to replace Justin Lin. And I really do enjoy The Fate of the Furious, so I like F. Gary Gray's directing style. The only outlier in all of his movies really does seem to be Friday, because he does, for the most part, stick to the action genre. And really, he's made 3 heist movies, and he's really good at it. They all look stylish. They all look great. They have beautiful cinematography, which shouldn't be a surprise because F. Gary Gray does come from the world of music videos. He actually made the Ice Cube video, Today Was a Good Day.
Shake 'em up, shake 'em up, shake 'em. Roll 'em in a circle of homies and watch me break 'em.
Which is one of my personal favorite music videos of all time. So he does have a great eye for visuals. And this movie might not be the most visually pleasing movie to some. It's got a very like cool looking cinematography style to it. The colors are a little bit flat. They're not the most sharp looking. They're not the brightest looking colors. It's actually kind of a dark looking feel as far as the visuals go. But that's all balanced out, and many people might not realize that because it's actually a very funny movie. Everybody does their job well. This feels like a summer blockbuster that you would have saw in theaters back in 2003 because it's just fun. It's not going for that 5-star rating. It's not going to be that 10 out of 10 movie with all these actors getting Oscar nominations, award nominations. No, everybody's just having a good time. Nobody's turning in their greatest performance they've ever done. You know, Mark Wahlberg is serviceable. He's great in the lead role. Jason Statham and Charlize Theron both would end up appearing in The Fate of the Furious, and I wonder if it's their connection to the F. Gary Gray that really like helped bridge that gap. Well, mainly Charlize Theron, because Jason Statham had actually appeared before that, but it's pretty funny because F. Gary Gray really seems to know how to use Jason Statham. He's a lot funnier in this movie. He's funny in The Fate of the Furious. I just like it when they move off Jason Statham playing the, you know, angry British guy that he seems to always play. It's fun when we get to see Jason Statham seeming like he's just having a good time, and that's what he's doing in this movie because everyone gets these great comedic moments. My favorite moment in this movie is actually not one of the great action sequences. It's just this little moment when Seth Green is basically improvising what he thinks Jason Statham is saying to this girl, Becky.
Someone needs your shirt and your truck. Perfect, I'll give them both to you. Would you like my virginity as well? If it's on the menu.
And you just looking over at Jason Statham, he's smiling and laughing, and it's like, oh man, that's a perfect impression. And then there's another little moment just similar to that. These little moments are the best parts of this movie where Mos Def and Mark Wahlberg go to see this guy Skinny Pete, who's of course about 400 pounds of just hulking man. You know, well, I wouldn't say hulking, I would say heavy set. They go and see him, and Mark Wahlberg tells Mos Def, yo, don't stare at him. He feels uncomfortable when people stare at him. Mos Def is just sitting there staring at him, and Mark Wahlberg's trying to navigate this situation not to piss off Skinny Pete. And those two moments of this movie were my personal two favorite moments in this movie. Yes, the action sequences are all great. We open up in Italy, and then most of the rest of the movie takes place in Los Angeles. Edward Norton plays a pretty serviceable villain, and I really wasn't into his villain performance until about we got to just before the third act, because it just seemed like his performance was simply, yo, be a dick, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Just be the biggest piece of crap you can think of, and that's it. And that's pretty much what he was doing. He was just screwing people over. He's treating everybody terrible. And then it's really not until we get to the third act. Yes, his character portrayal is over the top, but we get to actually flesh it out a little bit more just as we go into the third act, because again, it's an ensemble cast, so we don't really get too much character development. Everybody just kind of plays their roles. And that's fine. I mean, I think it's just, like I said, just a very serviceable, interesting, fun movie. Nothing that is going to leave a lasting impression on you. This is like a movie you can watch every few years. It feels like the kind of movie you go see on a Saturday morning at a matinee. You know, it's not one of those really special movies. It's just a fun little 3 to 3.5 star movie that I think you'll have a good time watching. Just don't go into it expecting to have your socks blown off or going in there seeing a masterpiece. It's just a very generic action movie that just happens to look really good and have some fun performances in there. And either way, even if you don't grab this 4K Blu-ray, I can definitely recommend you check this movie out whenever you can.
Steve, gang's all here.
You have no idea how hard it is for me not to reach across this table and kill you.
But the reason we've all gathered here today is to talk about this brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Paramount. And I thought it was really weird because earlier this year I actually got the 4K Blu-ray for the original Italian Job, and like I said, using that term reboot is very fast and loose with the word reboot. There is almost no connection between the two of them. Yes, they're both heist movies, both heist ensemble movies, but they are very different movies. The Italian Job from 2003 opens in Italy, and that's really it. The original one, it's between London and Italy for the most part. Otherwise, this one takes place in Los Angeles. But other than that, there isn't really too much of a connection. But I just thought it was really cool that we got both of them on 4K Blu-ray this year. And the original Italian Job hadn't had a 4K Blu-ray or a new scan in a long time. And either did this one. This one, I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like the last scan we got of this was from 2006. It's a very old Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray that comes packed in here is that same very old Blu-ray with the old menu system that has a Dolby track on it, a 5.1, nothing too special, the visuals aren't too special, but that Blu-ray disc is going to include all of your extras. And before we dive into all that, I'm going to show you guys the packaging because I got a really cool slipcover. This does come in a steelbook version if you're interested in that, and it's actually running pretty cheap. I think right now this is only like 20 bucks, which is a steal, and I'll get into why in a second. But look, you get the slipcover, and underneath you get the same artwork. Nothing too special there. You pop it open, you get the 4K, you get the Blu-ray. Like I said, that's a previously released Blu-ray, so usually I would complain about that. But one thing about Paramount over the last couple years has always seemed to be shying away from releasing that Blu-ray. They kind of just send out the 4K and that's it. If it has extras on it, okay, then they're lucky, but if not, no. For the most part, you're just getting the film on that 4K disc that comes packed in here. Yes, you're only going to have the film on that. All of your extras are going to be on that Blu-ray disc. The first disc is just the 4K with brand new Dolby Vision, and you get a brand new DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 on them. But if you're into the extras, they're all on that Blu-ray disc. They're all previously released. They're pretty good. Nothing too special as far as extras go. I do appreciate that there's a making of. It's just really a bunch of featurettes that if you would have edited it together, would have been about a 1-hour making of documentary, but they kind of split it up, and then there's some trailers. So if you're into the extras, I enjoyed them, but again, they're pretty old, and
his head fell off. Yeah, it was pretty old.
And they haven't been updated, so they look like they were ripped right from the DVD. Probably came out in 2003 because all the interviews are from then, so I don't expect any kind of looking back on this movie. They didn't get anyone together to do any new extras, no commentary track, none of that. All you got here was a new scan of the film and upgraded it to a nice 4K Blu-ray with Dolby Vision and HDR10, whatever your system supports. I compared them both. I thought they were both great, both upgrades over that previous Blu-ray, but that previous Blu-ray, It's not the worst, and I think that's just because of the source material. Like I said earlier in the review, F. Gary Gray really does know how to make a film look good, and that's because of his music video background. So that previous Blu-ray, you know, the biggest weakness of it is the resolution. So you get a huge resolution jump to this brand new 4K, and then the HDR is just doing its work, so it's a much brighter 4K. Also, the previous Blu-ray was very grainy, so a lot of that grain is there, but it's less noticeable now on the 4K. So it's not DNR'd to the point where, you know, it wipes it clean. Now, there's still a little bit of film grain there, almost the perfect amount. Honestly, visually, basically a 10 out of 10 for these visuals. They are phenomenal. It's a jump from that Blu-ray, and Paramount, when they want to, can do some of the best scans. Now, you've also released some of the worst scans I've ever seen. So if Paramount is feeling it, if they're feeling up to the task, I don't know if they just have separate teams working on separate films. When they want to, they can put out some of the best 4K scans that I have ever seen, right up there with Universal and Warner Brothers scans as far as major studios go. They're still not quite hitting the levels, I think, of like the Kino Lorber 4K scans or even some of the great Scream Factory, Shout Factory scans we've seen, but it's still a phenomenal scan, this one in particular, and because of the high budget of the film and being a early 2000s action film, it's going to transfer really well to 4K, and this one really does. As far as the visuals go, I'd probably have to say it's like a 10 out of 10 visually. Audio-wise, again, a really good DTS HD 5.1 track. It's a new track. It sounds really good. Would I have liked the Dolby Atmos track? Of course, I did feel like it wasn't the best track I had ever heard. The action scenes, though, were making really good use of all of your speakers. You had no problems understanding the dialogue. You set your remote down right after the volume you want to watch this movie at, and you know, it doesn't jump at you. Like the action scenes don't come out of nowhere where you're like, oh my god, I gotta scramble and grab my remote. No, none of that happens here. It's all good from beginning to end. Everything is crisp and clear, makes good use of all of your speakers. Would I have liked that Atmos tracks? Of course, we always wanted the best track available to us, but they did a really good job on this mix. Going along with those visuals, it's a really nice 4K Blu-ray. I just would have liked some new extras in here. That's my biggest disappointment. I know that the extras are make or break for everybody. Like Matt in particular, for example, he doesn't really care what the extras are because he's really there for the quality jump of the disc. And if that's what you're here for, it's a huge jump from that previous Blu-ray. If you are a fan of the Italian Job, you're going to want to see this on 4K because I can't imagine it looking any better than it does now. The audio, yeah, could leave a little bit of room of improvement if they ever do another scan again, but visually, you're not going to do better than this 4K. And like I said, that Blu-ray isn't the worst, but it's pretty old now, that scan, and it was due for an upgrade, and I think they did a fantastic job bringing this to 4K. And like I said earlier, the price of this really isn't that bad. You know, Paramount will charge the same price whether they put that second Blu-ray disc in there or not, and it's nice when we do get them to pack that Blu-ray disc in because we get all the previous extras, and I know a lot of people like to have that second Blu-ray disc if they're like watching it in a room that doesn't support 4K. Awesome, I'm glad that they did that. Paramount, again, that's something, again, with the randomness of them, so I can never understand or read what they're thinking when they're releasing their 4Ks. Sometimes we might get some of the best, sometimes we might get some of the worst, but this time I can honestly say we got a beautiful transfer here. I would honestly give this a really solid 8 out of 10. My complaints are just with the fact that we didn't get any new extras. And that's really it. The visuals and audio are really good. The film itself is solid. Again, don't expect to see the most special film you have ever seen in the world. But if you're looking for something to watch on a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon, you could do worse than The Italian Job from 2003. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here on another episode of Let's Talk. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, search for us on all podcast services, give us a 5-star rating there. And then after you're done doing all that, I want you to go out, grab yourself a Mini Cooper, slide that thing into the smallest parking space you can find, and after you do that, get out of the car and tell all your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.